Welcome to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast. Today, you're joining us for a deep dive into a heist so audacious, it's practically the stuff of legend. We're talking about the Great Brink's robbery of 1950 in Boston.
That's right. Forget the dry history lesson. We're going to really unpack the incredible planning, the sheer nerve of the execution, and the almost unbelievable fallout.
They called it the crime of the century for a reason, didn't they?
Absolutely. And we've got a fascinating collection of details here. We're tracing it from the initial idea, years before it happened, right through to the dramatic unraveling nearly 6 years later.
Yeah, the information paints such a vivid picture. Our mission today is to really pull out the most captivating bits for you. The audacity, the surprising twists. It's quite a ride.
It really is. Get ready for some surprising facts and a journey into a really pivotal moment in criminal history.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing, right? The idea was kicking around for a
No,
while.
way back. The seed for this massive robbery was actually planted around 1947.
47. So years before the actual event, what was the initial plan? Was it always this big, dramatic, armed robbery?
No, interestingly enough, the first thought was actually more along the lines of a straightforward burglary.
Straightforward burglary of Brinks. Even that sounds pretty ambitious.
Oh, definitely. But, things changed. Brinks moved their Boston operations in 1948.
Ah, to a new building.
Exactly. A brand new building with significantly beefed up security. That forced the crew to completely rethink their strategy.
So the new security threw a wrench in the works. What was the biggest obstacle? The alarm system, I bet.
You got it, that pesky burglar alarm.
Yeah.
Bypassing that became the central challenge.
Right. So how do you get around a state-of-the-art Brinks alarm system in 1948? Not easily, I imagine.
Not easily at all. And this is where the planning gets really meticulous and, frankly, incredibly audacious. They didn't try to disable the alarm head-on. Too risky.
Okay, so what was the alternative?
They went after the locks themselves. Over months, these guys systematically removed every single lock cylinder from the Brinks building.
Wait, they removed the locks from Brinks? How?
The sheer nerve, right? They take them out one by one, apparently took them somewhere to have duplicate keys made, and then this is the kicker. They secretly put the original locks back in place.
You're kidding. They put them back.
Put them back. It tells you so much about their patience, their attention to detail. This wasn't a smash and grab. It was a long con almost.
Wow. Just, wow. The audacity is staggering. You'd think someone would notice a lock missing, even temporarily.
It suggests they were incredibly careful or maybe just incredibly lucky during that phase. But all this painstaking preparation, it all led up to the big night.
January 17th, 1950. Set the scene for us. What
Yeah.
happened?
Okay, so it's just after 7 p.m. 7 men, all masked, approached the building. And their disguises were almost theatrical. Chauffeur caps, navy peacoats.
Like something out of a movie, trying to blend in.
Sort of. They might have looked like delivery guys at first glance, but they weren't carrying packages. They were armed with .38 caliber revolvers.
Okay, so not so inconspicuous up close.
Yeah.
And the timing, 7 p.m., was that deliberate?
Absolutely deliberate. Based on, weeks, maybe months of surveillance, they knew the vault was likely open around then.
Why open?
Employees would be prepping for the evening cash count, and crucially, fewer guards would be on duty. It was all about minimizing risk.
Smart. So they get inside. What happens then?
They moved fast, rounded up the 5 employees who were in the vault area.
And I assume they weren't just asking nicely.
Oh no, tied them up quickly, then straight to work, stuffing huge canvas bags with cash, checks, securities, everything they could grab.
And how long did this take? Inside the building?
Get this, just 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
20 minutes from entry to exit to commit what was, at the time, the largest cash robbery in U.S. history.
That's unbelievable speed and efficiency in a terrifying way. And the haul, the final amount.
It was staggering. $2.775 million.
Wow. What's that in today's money? Like,
We're talking over $36 million today. It's almost impossible to really wrap your head around that amount of cash, especially back then.
36 million. Just incredible. But wasn't there a story about money they didn't take?
Ah, yes. That's a great detail. They actually left behind about $1 million.
$1 million. Why? Did they run out of time?
Nope. It was mostly in silver and coins. It was just too heavy.
Too heavy. They couldn't carry it.
Exactly. They had planned for the bills, the securities, but hauling literally tons of coins. It wasn't feasible for their getaway.
Yeah.
It's funny. It shows meticulous planning in one sense, but also like a limitation they hit.
So they grab millions but leave a million because of weight. That's almost comical.
Right.
Okay, so they can make their escape. How long until the alarm was finally raised?
Relatively quickly, actually. About 27 minutes after they first entered, one of the Brink's employees managed to wiggle free enough to hit the alarm.
Okay, so the clock was ticking. What was the immediate police response like?
I imagine chaos. Absolute chaos. Police Commissioner Thomas F. Sullivan launched a massive investigation instantly. They pulled in 13 people for questioning right away, former employees, known associates, the usual sweep.
And the pressure must have been immense.
Off the charts. Brink's put up a huge reward, $100,000. The insurance companies added more. Even J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI got involved personally. This was huge news, a national sensation.
Hoover himself, wow. But what did the robbers leave behind? It sounds like they were pretty clean.
They tried to be. The only real clues at the scene were a single chauffeur's cap someone dropped, some pieces of rope they used, and bits of adhesive tape.
Not much to go on. What about the getaway vehicle?
And they found the truck, yeah, a stolen Ford, but it was discovered later in Stoughton, Massachusetts, not far from where one of the suspects lived, actually. And it was completely dismantled, cut up into pieces.
Trying to erase every trace. It really seemed like they might have pulled it off, didn't it? For a while, anyway.
For years, it looked that way. It was the perfect crime, almost. And there was something unique about the loot itself that made tracing it incredibly difficult.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Well, most of the cash, the vast majority of that, nearly $3 million, was in small bills. Ones, fives, tens, 20s.
So not big stacks of hundreds.
Exactly. Trying to track the serial numbers on millions of small common bills already in circulation, it was basically impossible. A logistical nightmare for the feds.
Like finding a needle in a haystack the size of New England. Wow.
Pretty much. You couldn't just flag a specific $10 bill easily. And here's a sort of dark fun fact for you related to the crew.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
One of the original 7 robbers, a guy named Stanley Gusciora, he actually died before he could even be brought to trial.
Died? How?
Brain tumor. So one of the key players literally took whatever secrets he had to the grave before the law could fully catch up with him.
That's wild. Adds another layer of complexity. So you have untraceable cash, minimal clues, one guy dead. How did this supposedly perfect crime start to unravel?
Well, it so often happens, right? It wasn't brilliant police work initially. It was internal friction, greed, stupidity, maybe.
The human element.
Exactly. Within just months of the Brink's job, 2 of the crew, Joseph O'Keefe and our late friend Stanley Gusciora, they got themselves arrested again.
For what? Not the Brink's robbery?
No. For another unrelated burglary down in Pennsylvania. Seems they could just lay low and enjoy the millions. Old habits.
Seriously. After pulling off the crime of the century, they go back to petty burglary. That seems incredibly dumb.
It really does. And it proved to be a major turning point. While they were locked up in Pennsylvania, O'Keefe and Gusciora started, let's say, leaning on their buddies back in Boston.
For Bernie.
Yeah. Demanding cash from their share of the Brink's loot to pay for lawyers, for bail, And the guys still free in Boston weren't too happy about constantly sending money down there.
So the honor among thieves starts to fray.
Big time. It created this huge rift. The free guys felt like they were being bled dry, and maybe getting nervous about the attention O'Keefe and Gusciora were drawing. This was the first real crack in their wall of silence.
And that crack just got wider, didn't it? It led to some pretty serious stuff.
Oh, it escalated dramatically. O'Keefe eventually got out on bail for the Pennsylvania charges, and he came back claiming he'd never gotten his fair share of the Brink's money in the first place.
Uh-oh. Whether it was true or not, that sounds like trouble.
Big trouble. He was apparently desperate for cash.
Yeah.
So what did he do? In a move that sounds like something out of a bad crime novel, he kidnaps another member of the Brink's gang.
He kidnapped one of his own crew.
Yep. Kidnapped Vincent Costa, demanding his supposed share of the Brink's loot as ransom. Can you imagine? The sheer audacity continues.
That is unbelievable. Robber kidnaps fellow robber over the loot from their own crime? You couldn't write this stuff.
It gets even crazier. Another key member, Anthony Pino, actually paid a small part of the ransom to get Costa released.
Okay, so maybe trying to smooth things over.
Not exactly. Because right after paying the ransom, Pino decides O'Keefe is too much of a liability. He's worried O'Keefe will talk to the cops eventually. So Pino hires a hitman.
A hitman to take out O'Keefe.
A notorious underworld figure named Elmer Triggerberg. The plan was to silence O'Keefe permanently.
Wow. This went from robbery to kidnapping to attempted murder within the gang itself.
It really did.
Mm.
So Triggerberg tracks down O'Keefe and shoots him, seriously wounds him. But, and this is crucial, Burke fails to kill him.
He survived the hit.
He survived. And where does O'Keefe end up? In the hospital, recovering from gunshot wounds inflicted by his own associates?
The perfect opportunity for the FBI.
Exactly. They saw their chance. While he's laid up, vulnerable, probably feeling pretty betrayed, they approach him. And after some intense negotiation, let's say, he finally cracked.
He started talking.
He broke his silence. On January 6, 1956, nearly 6 full years after the robbery.
Wow. A botched hit is what finally brings the whole thing down. The timing was tight, too, wasn't it? The statute of limitations.
Incredibly tight. They were literally days away from the deadline. The statute of limitations was about to expire, meaning the gang could have walked free forever.
Just 5 days before it ran out.
Exactly. O'Keefe starts singing on January 6th, and armed with his testimony, the FBI moves fast. On January 12th, just 5 days before the statute expired, they rounded up most of the crew.
Who did they get?
Baker, Costa, Geegan, Maffey, McGinnis, Pino. Faraday and Richardson were picked up shortly after. Pretty much the whole main group, except, Gusciora, who'd already died.
Finally, after 6 years, what happened to them at trial?
8 of the gang members ended up getting the maximum sentence possible at the time. Life imprisonment.
Life. And O'Keefe, the guy who talked.
Because he cooperated, testified against the others, he got a much, much lighter sentence, just 4 years.
4 years versus life, that's quite a deal for turning state's evidence.
Definitely pays to cooperate, it seems. But here's the lingering question, the big mystery that remains. The money. Despite catching almost everyone, despite the convictions, they recovered almost none of the loot.
How much did they actually find?
A tiny fraction. Something like $58,000 out of the original $2.775 million.
$58,000 out of almost $3 million. That's insane.
It is. Over $2.7 million in $1950 just vanished. Poof. Gone.
Where did it all go? That's the million-dollar question, or rather the multi-million-dollar question.
Exactly. Did they spend it? Hide it? Did some get away with their shares? Were there secret stashes nobody ever found? It's probably the biggest enduring mystery of the whole case.
It really adds to the whole legend, doesn't it? The unrecovered millions.
Absolutely. Keeps people speculating even today.
You know, if you're finding this deep dive into the incredible story of the Great Brink's robbery as gripping as we are, and you want to uncover more of these fascinating kind of wild tales from history, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast. We've got plenty more surprising and adventurous stories lined up, and you really don't want to miss out.
Yeah, definitely subscribe. And, the Brink story, it didn't just end with the trials and the mystery of the money. It really embedded itself in popular culture.
Oh, for sure. It became this iconic American crime story. There have been movies, right?
At least 4 notable films that I know of. 6 Bridges to Cross came out pretty early, and then later, The Brink's Job with Peter Falk, they helped cement the story, the almost farcical elements alongside the seriousness of it in the public imagination.
Right. Keeps the legend alive for new generations. So, wrapping this up then, what a story. We've gone from the meticulous, almost unbelievable planning stages.
Years of planning, removing locks, making keys.
To the lightning-fast 20-minute execution.
7 guys, chauffeur caps, millions in bags.
And then the messy, very human aftermath. Betrayal, greed, violence.
Kidnapping your own partners, hiring hitmen. It just spiraled.
What started as this seemingly perfect, almost sterile crime plan completely unraveled because of the people involved. Internal conflicts, bad decisions, and maybe a bit of luck for the FBI with that failed hit.
It really highlights how the human element can derail even the most intricate schemes.
And think about this. They pulled off the biggest cash robbery in U.S. history at that point. An incredible feat of criminal planning and execution. Yet, almost none of the money was ever found.
Over $2.7 million just evaporated.
So, was it worth it? All that risk, the planning, the years spent looking over their shoulders, only for the prize to disappear, and most of them end up in jail for life. What does that tell you?
It's a powerful question, isn't it?
Right.
About the nature of crime, maybe the illusion of the big score. Even when they seemingly won, they lost. It's a reminder that things rarely go exactly according to plan, especially when millions of dollars and flawed human beings are involved.
Definitely something to chew on. We hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, given you some insights into this truly legendary robbery.
It's a story that just keeps on giving.
Indeed. Well, until next time on Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast, keep asking questions, keep digging into those stories. And hey, maybe someone listening will finally figure out where those missing millions went.
Wouldn't that be something?